Hey girl, hey.
Hey, girl, everybody. Hi, everyone.
Hi. How's it
Hello.
going?
It's good. How are you?
I feel like the dynamic would be really different if we weren't sitting at our computers. Like I feel
Like
like
if
if
we
we
were
were
in
just
person?
yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be so fun. But
We
that's gonna
did
come one
one
day.
in person. The very first one was in person. I was sweating through my shirt. I was so nervous. I was so nervous and I had like the full episode like fully planned out and
Oh, that's right.
now it looks very different.
Wait,
I
can we
mean, we
just
do plan,
reminisce?
but
Yeah,
sometimes.
we have some notes, which is
Yeah.
why the computer in front of us is helpful. But
Yeah.
I remember you were like, so you don't have like a full script of what we're gonna talk about? And I was
Yeah,
like,
I didn't. It did
no.
not compute. I was like, how could you do a podcast without a script,
Yeah,
though?
I actually think that's the point of a podcast is like to go off script.
I my favorite podcasts are like Radio Lab, for example, which is like super produced and it starts out with interviews, but they edited it together in a way. It just sounds so nice and polished. And I don't know. I'm a polished person first and foremost, and you've helped me to like chill out with the podcasting stuff. You've helped me
Oh,
chill out in
good.
a lot of
Oh,
ways.
good. Well, I
Thanks.
hope in return you're also giving me a little bit of polish, so I think that's great. Anyway, we're here for what we're deeming season two. We took like not a break that aligns with when we had like a break in airing episodes, but we spread everything out and then gave ourselves some time to like recalibrate what we were doing and how we wanted to come back for this new season. And yeah, in our last episode, we kind of gave some backstory about how this year is going to be an experiment and how we're going to be documenting it and sharing it from the perspective of two artists who are trying to lean into their art and make a living off of their art. But now in this episode, we're going to really like dive deep into our strategy for the coming year and how we're going to make money.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great little summary to start. So yeah, for those of you who didn't hear those last couple of episodes, just the quickest recap is that we got really burnt out and we miss making art ourselves because that's where we started. And then we just kind of fell into education and then we ended up like putting all of our time and love and attention into that. And as much as we love supporting other people and want that to continue to be something that we hold near and dear and continue to do, we also need to take care of ourselves and what makes us happy. So we're trying to find the overlap where we can do all of those things at once. So
Yeah. Well, we're sharing about our own experience making art and making money
yeah.
with an education perspective of like, here's what we learned, here's what you can take away from this, here's what we're going to try next. And hopefully it'll be really helpful to be like along for the ride, knowing that like we can't take either of those things, being an artist or an educator, out of who we are because it's like really important to us as a whole. And so we're just going to try a new perspective of how we do that.
Yeah, and we're just running little mini experiments this year and trying to do things like in different ways and take different approaches and come from a place of like we don't know everything. We can anticipate or hypothesize what's going to happen, but you really have to do it to be able to measure not only if it works out the way that you think, but also we're looking to see if things make us genuinely feel happy and fulfilled because sometimes you go into something and you're like this sounds great and then you try it and you're like that's not for me. So we're just kind of trying to find that rhythm and flow for us and look for where happiness and making a living making art overlap.
Love that.
So
All
should
right.
we dive into how we are going about this plan?
Yeah, no gatekeeping, full transparency here. We're going to show you exactly what we went through and what we're going through to make this work. So, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to do when we were making our plan is there are parts of our business that are still going to be different than an artist who's just doing freelance art because we run Goodtype with the courses and the conference, our annual conference, and we do some like sponsorship kind of stuff. We are factoring that in on one side of our business, and then we're kind of keeping separate financially this side of our business that's just our art where Ilana and I team up and we make art, and we wanted to kind of pick a goal number for that was easy for us to wrap our heads around and that we could share with y'all and we could like follow along and track progress. But it's not necessarily like I think we're holding all of this very lightly. At least I am.
Yeah, well, and also, like, what a luxury that we can do this experiment knowing that we can still make ends meet we will make ends meet because we have other aspects of our business. Like we have multiple income streams. So we're focusing on this one piece of the pie, knowing that we have the flexibility because we have another piece or several other pieces of the pie. So like, we're not saying this without acknowledging that we have a privilege of already having a business that is running on one.
And it's really important to point this out because we have seen like this culture in kind of online course space of people that have like the best intentions, but they end up saying like, oh, I make X amount of money. And then they teach you how to do something, and it kind of comes off like, oh, they make that amount of money doing the art or doing the thing, when actually they're making that amount of money teaching people to do the thing.
Right. So I think, yeah, there's like this big disconnect because like girl boss culture and like hustle culture, we all see those things online that are like kind of clickbaity and say like how to make 6 figures online, as an artist, but how they're making 6 figures. Maybe they used to make 6 figures from their art, but now they make 7 figures from teaching about it. And so it's not to say that their intentions are bad. It's just a different approach. And so we really want to take the approach of, what if we do exactly what we're teaching and show exactly how we're doing it and share like the real data behind it? Is that a good kind of,
So I just felt like I had to give that caveat because of, our first step was to look at our business last year, and our business last year had no art creation in it really at all. So we have lots of data from how Goodtype did financially, but that's based on courses, the current friends, the sponsorships, like those types of things. So we, made a plan based on that side of the business, which we talked about, like, were we going to share that part with y'all? And we were just like, I don't know how helpful that would be, because we're really trying to speak to the freelancer or the person who's trying to make a living just from making art and not necessarily doing as much of the education piece as we are. So I think we're going to just like set that piece aside, and that it's like there cooking in the background, and that's helping us, do these things where we're setting up our portfolio and taking a little bit of time to prep and having those natural ebbs and flows. And we're not starting from zero because we both have our own portfolios and our own experience, but this is the first time we're like officially collabing, and we're, as of now, we're calling it the Goodtype Design Studio. So we'll see. It's fine. It tells people what it is, right?
Yeah, it's missing that like clever punny nature that you and
I. I think not everything has to be a pun, as much as that's hard for me to hear. I think just our mantras, and especially my mantra this year, is like imperfection. And so I'm trying to just like not overthink everything in the whole world.
Yeah.
Because I tend to do that. So I'm just like, let's give it a name and go.
Yeah. We don't need this conversation to happen here, but like I feel like design and studio could be redundant. You might call yourself like Ilana's Designs, but like you wouldn't Ilana's Design and whatever. This is a conversation we'll have later. But yeah, a Goodtype Design Studio, whatever.
Clearly we still are at the early phases.
Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is like, how did we actually break down our financial goal? How did we set it? What conversations did we have around it? So let's start there.
Yeah. So I keep starting and then going on caveats because I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew like what the basis of what our business looks like is. Okay. So we've got Goodtype, the stuff we've been doing, cooking in the corner. So now we're going to just look at what is the design studio goal and what are we trying to achieve. So the number that we want to use as our goal number, we decided for the both of us together would be $100,000. You might be like, that's so much money. Or you might be like, that's not enough money. There's 2 of you. We all have such different perspectives on how much money is a lot of money. And I remember when I first heard of people who are making $100,000 in their design studio, I was like, okay, Richie Rich. Whoa.
Yeah.
But I think the reality of those numbers too is, and Ilana, you always want to make sure you punctuate this, is that that's typically what people share is like the gross income, which is the top level number before you consider how much you spent to make that much money. So how much were your expenses? So when you actually take out expenses of $100,000 and you're trying to pay 1 or 2 people, it becomes a lot less money really fast.
Mm-hmm. It's also a nice like round number. Like we could do 120 or we could do 80, but like for math purposes, since we both have bachelor's in fine art, I think 100K is a
Don't
nice, and
need to make it complicated.
and also it is like such a buzzword. I feel like everyone is saying six figures and everyone talks about 100K, but it really did make sense here because we looked at past years, we looked at our whole pie, and we know that that number is going to be way smaller based on the type of projects we're going to be working on. And so that was the first thing we did is figure out, okay, what's this number? What's our goal?
Yeah, and we also picked that knowing that there's going to be a lot of ramp up to this process of like Ilana and I having to get our portfolio ready, get the website updated, do all this outreach and like start to get things going. So that's something that we've got to keep in mind too. So one quote I want to bring up, and I've said this quote before, from Mariah Cause, who we took a course with her several years ago, and she said, a goal is 100% about the person that you become in pursuit of that goal. So it's not, I mean, as nice as it would be to hit exactly our number or go above that number, what we're going to do is we're going to make a plan as if we were going to make that amount of money. We're going to make moves as if we're making that amount of money. And then what happens, happens. And we're going to try to approach it without so much judgment. But I love that quote. And that's a good reminder. I think I'll have to stick that on a sticky note on my forehead this whole time.
Perfect. So that everyone else knows, but you never see it unless you look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing about the numbers. And this is like a different way of looking at what Katie just said. But when we set goals, we think about the qualitative and the quantitative. And so the quantitative is the actual like numeric, like I want to grow 500 followers or I want to make this much money. But the more important thing is like the way you feel about the goal. And so even if you don't hit it, it doesn't mean you failed and you didn't quit. It means that you didn't quite meet it, but maybe you met this like goal, which is like how you felt trying to get there. Did you feel like you put in your best effort? Did you feel good trying to reach it? And so we're considering all of this as well. And to us, when we broke down this number, which we're going to share like how we did that in just a second, we thought about our workflow and we thought about how many projects we could like take on without burning out. We thought about what's realistic, how much we would make from each type of project, how much we could crank out. I mean, we're in January now. We've made exactly $0 towards this. I just want to be very clear so far because we are in the process of building work to be added to our licensing portfolio. So yeah. Okay. So I think we've sort of wrapped that kind of what is our number, right?
Yeah. So then we're going to break it into licensing income and freelance income. So those are the two pieces of our business that we really want to focus on. And so we came to a goal of 40,000 from licensing specifically and 60,000 from freelance specifically. And typically from our experience, freelance projects, they might be fewer and further between, might be harder to get than a licensing gig, but they tend to pay a lot more than the licensing world. But then there are pros in the licensing world as well, because a lot of those deals, you get royalties that come in over time. And we want to have lots of those things going on in the background too. So we sell one piece and then we have royalties kind of filling in these ebbs and flows of how our freelance game is going. So we just kind of guesstimated based on our previous experience what we thought would be kind of like the proportions. Guesstimate? Yeah.
Why though? Like, isn't it the same as estimate?
Yes. I feel like
curious.
guesstimate is even more loose than
yeah.
estimate.
You're like guessing in estimation.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, and it's just more fun.
Yeah, it's more cute. Okay,
so would you agree with that assessment of how we got to that?
Yeah, and I do want to say, yes, I want to say a couple things. Just like reminder, this is not sponsored content. This is not the Kern Friends. This is not any of our other income streams. This is strictly licensing and freelance design work. And so people ask us all the time, like, what do you think someone can make in the licensing world? And people can make a ton of money in the licensing world, primarily if they're giving it their all and doing it full time. Like, you know, the limit does not exist, to quote the best, movie. No, just kidding. But we often say that we think $20,000 is a very good goal to reach for, and is not an easy goal. I don't think it's like very consistent. Like, you need to be creating a lot of new artwork. You need to be pitching, or if you're working with an agent, that would be probably $40,000 worth in sales. And so if that was kind of the number that we often thought about, then there's two of us, we could make double the amount of work and put our all in, and then we'd have 40. And so I think that number both came to us from this reverse engineering that we're talking about, but also because that was sort of a number that was already in our head when we were in the licensing world of like, that's where we wanted to be. And so, yeah, that 40K from licensing. And so we broke that down even more to figure out, okay, well, what would that actually look like? And so
can I interject before you start doing that, though? Because I just realized maybe we have some people who are just joining us for the first time and they're not super familiar with licensing versus freelance. So I just wanted to define that really quickly. So freelance work is what you're used to hearing about the most. So that's when a client will hire you for something custom to create that's like very specific for their exact situation that they need, and you won't be able to reuse that art for anything else. It'll like have their company name on it or something like that. So that's typically what we consider to be freelance work. And then licensing work, on the other hand, we're specifically talking about art licensing, which is creating art for use on products. So we're talking greeting cards, which is my specialty, and Ilana does a ton of that as well. We're talking kitchen products and home goods and pet goods and outdoor sports wear and all sorts of things. Like any time that there's a product that's being sold in a store and it has some kind of art on it, that is an example of a potential art licensing situation. So that's the definition of those two things. Now I'll step aside and let you finish breaking those numbers down a little more.
Yeah. Like Katie said, we do a lot of greeting cards, and based on our experience, we have a rough average licensing fee of about $1,250. And so how many cards would we need to license throughout the year to make that goal, to contribute? And so we figured out if we did 32 cards, or like about 2 or 3 cards every month that got licensed, then we could make tons of progress towards this goal. Because if we're making 2 or 3 card sales every month, we're probably making maybe 9 pieces and like maybe 3 get picked up. And so that's a pace that we can actually keep up with, especially because there's 2 of us.
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not just tons of progress towards the goal. That's the actual goal. So if we made 32 sales of cards at, or whatever it is, at $1,250 a pop, that equals $40,000. And again, we're just looking at the gross margins, the top margins, before we take any kind of expenses, any kind of marketing expenses, our website, our outreach. Like we're using a virtual assistant to help us do some outreach this year. So before we take all of those things out, the top level we want to make is 40K.
Right. And of course, we could do 32 sales and not hit that 40K number. We could also hit that 40K number doing way more cards, way less cards. And so having the goals like qualitative, quantitative, and like breaking them down, it makes it so much more attainable and like understandable even to figure out, was I even near my goal? Like if it's just a number that like you pulled out of your butt, like nobody cares if you're like 100,000 because I heard people on the internet say it. Like, what does that mean in your take home? Like we looked at all of our income to figure out what made sense for us. And so, 32 cards is not that much. Like maybe we'll make 70 cards this year together. Again, there's 2 of us, and maybe 32 of them will get sold. That's great. And also it doesn't have to be exclusively greeting cards for us. It's just where we have found the most success and where we really enjoy being. But of course, we're going to expand that and create things that are not intended for greeting cards or that like could be reworked for other things. And we hope that the more work that we're proud of that we make and share will help us to contribute to that freelance bucket as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of guesstimating that goes into this process when you are selling something that has a fluctuating price. And so the planning for this is a little bit more tricky, which is, it really bothered me at first when I first planned something like this. And I was like, oh, this is way too up in the air. But we do have experience that we're basing this on from what's actually possible. But if you have like a shop where you sell like art prints and stickers and greeting cards of your own or whatever, it's going to be a lot easier for you to plan and reverse engineer that because you have exact numbers that you sell things at. You might have an occasional like 25% off sale here and there, which might like throw the numbers off like a little bit, but you can estimate with a lot more precision if you have numbers like that, or if you do packages for branding or things like that that are a lot more structured. But no matter what you're doing and what you're reverse engineering, this is the same process. It's just those kind of business models are going to get closer to the real numbers. Ours are going to be a little bit more of fudging and then taking data as we go and kind of reworking things.
And I think we're sort of starting with a leg up here, because if you're listening and you're like, well, I've never licensed before, like, we already have licensing relationships. We can call one of our previous clients who maybe licensed one card and say, we have a collection of 6. And so we already have like a list of people we want to reach out to, and we already have connections. We already have like some legs under us to stand on. But also, we would not be able to accomplish this with the rest of our workload without hiring help or delegating or paying for services like bookkeeping and things like that. Like Katie said, we outsource some things, and we have Emily on our team, which you've heard us talk about a ton. We definitely wouldn't be able to do this. Not to say that you can't do this. I'm just saying we couldn't do this without that support because of the other pieces of our pie. And so it's just important to remember that what we're sharing is what works for us. And you can kind of take what you want and leave the rest, and just know this is exactly how we're getting to those numbers and reverse engineering it.
So I think the next step is to talk about, now that we know sales goals, how are we going to make those sales? Like, those numbers aren't just going to magically happen for us. We've got to go out there and do the things that are going to result in these sales. So first and foremost, the way that Ilana and I are going to be working together, it's like a full 50-50 collaboration. It won't necessarily be a 50-50 on every piece of art. We do kind of have a rhythm going where Ilana's doing a lot of the sketching and I'm doing a lot of the finishing and creation of the pieces from a production standpoint, and then putting my own spin on things. But then Ilana's been off like doing some of her own cards fully on her own as well. So we're just kind of doing a mix of everything and just splitting it down the middle 50-50. So we're not going to get precious about, well, that's mine, so I'm going to put it in this pot, or that's like, that's just going to get too complicated. So we're just going to split it down the middle.
We've been working together for, I think, what are we on, like 5 or 6 years or something. But I get stuck on a project at a certain point. It's like always the place I get stuck. And I can push through if I have the time, of course, just like everyone. And the place where I get stuck is the place where Katie thrives. And so we have that dynamic where we can send things back and forth, but also throughout my process. So I just created, Katie was on vacation. I created a couple cards like all by myself, and I sent them to Katie.
They're so cute.
I'm actually like, so I feel like I'm finding my voice again after not creating for a while. And Katie was able to, through the process, give me feedback. Like I sent it to her when it was a sketch, and then I sent it to her like halfway through, and then I sent it to her at kind of the end. And she was able to still give me insight to make the piece more finished. And so it's not like she didn't have a hand in it and all, and like didn't know what I was working on, which that would be fine too if like she had an idea and wanted to run with it. But just so you know, like how we're working together, like on a deep level, is that I asked for her feedback. I asked for color. She sent me like a color palette. She was like, maybe try it in this color palette. And then at the end I said, do you feel like this has your voice in it too? And she says, if I was doing the same exact card, I wouldn't have changed anything. And so I was like, okay, this is both of us still. And that feels really good. But that didn't happen overnight. Again, we're both coming at it with like specific client relationships that we can tap into. So there's a lot of the collaborative part is a huge piece for us, but might not be for you.
So if we're going to break down our action items, the things we need to do to make those sales, the first thing we have to do is actually have a portfolio, a licensing portfolio. So both of us have our own portfolios that we've been working with. Ilana's is freaking huge. How many is yours, Ilana? So
I have over 500 pieces. However, I don't feel strongly. I don't feel like they represent me. I feel like a lot of them were made really quickly from briefs that my old agent had sent. And some of them are good, and some of them have gotten licensed that I'm like not that proud of, but I'm like, that's cool. And so I kind of want to start over from scratch, but there are a couple pieces, like there was a phrase I really liked that I came up with. I sent it to Katie and said, maybe we could rework this one. But I'm kind of starting from the beginning, especially because there are a lot of deals from my old agency that have artwork in the works. So I feel like I'm kind of starting over.
My portfolio is smaller, but I don't necessarily feel like I've got to start over. I think we still have a lot of pieces that we could,
Yeah.
offer in our portfolio, but I
Yeah.
do want to create a lot of new work and lead with like our voices together, like the way that we're going. But I think with licensing portfolios, I mean, not everything has to be something that you post to Instagram.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So there's a lot of work that maybe somebody's looking for a very specific, like I just made a tropical Christmas card that had little surfer girls surfing through the wave, and there were like presents and Christmas things stuck in the wave as well, and it was like surf the Yuletide. That's a kind of specific card, and if somebody was looking for tropical Christmas, even if I didn't want to, be putting that on the front page of our home page of our website, it's still something that I have that I could make money off of. So I don't think
Yeah.
you want to, we don't want to throw things in the trash that could make us money
Right,
still.
right. But it
But I
is
think
also
the
super cute.
mindset, yeah, but yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
No, I just realized that's how I sounded. Yeah, no, I think the mindset though that we're just adopting is we're really excited to kind of find this new voice together.
Yes.
That's emerging of us. So that's really where we're going to be focusing on, but I don't want to, not accept the things that
Right.
past me has
Right.
done.
Right.
That could
No, we're not
potentially
throwing
make me
them
money.
out. We're
Yeah.
not throwing them out. They just might be like buried in the portfolio. Like if they ask for
Yeah,
more of this,
exactly.
or if it goes with something that we're already pitching, maybe we can pair them. Maybe we even revisit those pieces and like
Yes.
change the colors or like, things like that. Like if it's going to sell and someone wants it, like that is quite some lovely validation right there about your work. But I don't feel that all of them represent me the way for the type of work I'd want to get. So they probably wouldn't go on our feed or on our website, but they'd probably be available to send to clients. So
Totally.
yeah, good point.
Yeah. And we're also creating new work intentionally. So the places that we're starting and focusing on are places that we know there is buyer interest or things that have worked really well for us in the past. So Ilana noticed that for me, the thing that flies off the shelf that I make or that's like requested all the time is anything icing lettering for birthday, sprinkle lettering, like desserts just kill it. Especially when the lettering almost looks like it's a tactile part of the cake. So we decided that that's the place where we wanted to start, and we've just been making like a bunch of ideas, and I've been creating a couple so far of the dessert series, we're calling it.
Yeah, and the reason that I think this was so top of mind for me is because I genuinely thought I was going to open a cupcake bakery when I was in college. Like I thought I was going to be like a designer and cupcake master. This was when cupcakes were like having a moment.
Yeah.
And like obviously everyone knows that the only good part of a cupcake is the frosting. So like I don't know why I was so obsessed, but
It's not the only good part.
I mean, okay, agree to disagree.
We have way different tastes in desserts, though. We have like polar opposite dessert tastes. So,
But my first company was called Sugar and Type, like sugar and spice. And it was just like when I saw that in Katie's portfolio and I had heard a client ask, for more of it, I was like, wait, why have we not done this yet? It's like both of our kind of sweet spots. To kind of put those together. And so, yeah, we've just been doing like dessert focused cards, and it's been such a fun way to kick this off. I've had like a few ideas. I've sent them to Katie. I've worked on a few things myself. And yeah, so that's where we started. And we made a list of all the kind of clients we've worked with in the past who we'd love to see, whether it's license the whole collection or license some of them. And so we'll be like strategically reaching out to them once we have enough pieces in that collection, which will hopefully be soon.
yeah. So, just a big thing to recap is leaning into our strengths and interests. A big reminder that we're trying to not just make money, but find a place where we feel happy and content.
Yeah,
and
drawing dessert makes me happy.
So that's perfect. That's such a perfect thing. And I think that's something that, I want to kind of measure daily is like finding the correlation between okay, how did I feel today emotionally and what was I doing today? Because sometimes you think you know what's going on and how you're feeling and what's causing it, but then you kind of like lose track over time. So I think keeping like a lab log will be helpful for me so that I can go back and, find patterns, be like, I seem to really enjoy the days that I am doing X, Y, and Z. So we're going to definitely pay attention to that and make the art that we want to make that also
Yeah.
makes us money.
I'm really curious to hear from anyone who's listening if this idea resonates. And if it does, and you're like, I need more, please email us, DM us, whatever. Someone is monitoring those inboxes and it's us. We're monitoring them. So I just want to hear, like, does this resonate? Are you trying to do something like this for yourself? Yeah. So I'd love to move into freelance and talk about kind of how we were looking at that. Does that seem good?
Sure.
Cool. So we have that 100K. We've split it up into 40 and 60. The 40 is from licensing. The 60 is going to be from freelance. And we kind of looked at past projects we've done. And like we said, freelance is like bigger projects, higher budgets. And we figured if we break down 60K, that's 5K per month. And 5K project is pretty reasonable for the type of clients we want to be reaching out to, the type of work we want to be doing. And so how do we actually get those sales? We went through that exact same process. And so again, we need some portfolio work, and we have plenty that we can pull from and revisit and like build case studies out. And if we do that, we maybe need to like a designer come in and help us build those case studies for our website, just so we have plenty of time to like focus on actually getting the clients instead of just making website changes for the rest of our life.
That
Yeah.
it's so key, because the reason you get into these loops of burnout is because there's so many things like this that come up as you're trying to figure out, how am I going to get to these goals? There's so much logistical stuff that ends up getting in the way of you being able to make the art that you were trying to make in the first place.
Right.
So that's what we've learned, is how important it is to bring in help. And I know that sounds really scary, especially if you're a solopreneur or you're totally new to business, and numbers like 100K sound so scary, and again, that's not everybody's number, but I just mean, like, if the perspective is like, wow, how am I going to go about this? How am I going to hire somebody to do something for me? Honestly, it's a lot easier than it sounds, and you don't actually have to hire somebody as an employee for them to help you out with little tasks. So you can hire contractors who will do things that are as tiny as, I need help with sending like 10 outreach emails a week or whatever, to I need you to run my whole social media. So there's like a whole range of things that you can get help with. And we've never really invested in something that we've needed and been like, man, I wish my time hadn't been freed up. There are definitely like
we'll literally never be like, oh man, I'm so sad I have all this time on my hands.
Right. There are definitely a lot of tips and tricks to working with another human person on anything in life. And Ilana and I have found that nobody cares about our business the way that we care about it, but that's just a fact of life. And we kind of have to go in with that knowledge underlying.
Yeah, like, why would they?
Why would they care?
Why would they care as deeply as we do?
But the most important thing you can do is have clear communication and set clear expectations. Like, they cannot read your mind. As much as I wish that somebody could come in and just like swoop stuff off my plate without me having to explain anything to them, that's not realistic. So you do have to invest that time in the setup, but the more organized and clear and concise you are, the better off you'll be. And help is helpful.
I think
you can
also,
quote me on
like,
that.
help is helpful. I feel like we spend a lot of time preparing someone to take a task on. Like, you think someone's going to come in and just like take the task off your plate, but actually, like, the biggest part is preparing for someone to take that task away from you. And so that is part of it. Like, even though you're like, well, I'm spending all this time prepping, it still saves you time, like mental space, like just headspace to not have to be in charge of that. And so we're doing something now, or I'm doing some outreach, and I've gone above and beyond to try and break it down as simply and as helpful. And so like they don't have to ask a question, and I maybe did too much, but it sets me up for next time. And that is definitely the hardest part, is like kind of onboarding someone into your project so that it's done and done well. Anyway, so we've got to pull some case studies. We have to do some website updates, which we work with Kate at Folk Founded, and we already have a meeting scheduled with her to revamp our website and tell her, what our goals are. So I'm sure there'll be a little bit of work that we need to do there, whether it's like creating some new graphics or writing some copy, but it shouldn't be too much of an overhaul because we're not changing the look of our website. We're just kind of adjusting some of the navigation. And then we have to like do some outreach, some serious outreach to talk to the people who we already kind of have relationships with and see if they are either willing to recommend us for projects, if we can help them on their projects, or if past clients want to become returning clients, things like that. And so that's going to take some time, but I think we've got the tools in our tool belt to do that. And because we'll be sharing more of the work we're creating, I think that should open doors for people to recognize us as also creating artwork and not just being business owners, which I don't think I mentioned, but like we do enjoy the business side of things. We just don't want it to be our only job. We also want to still be creating. And so it's not that we don't
enjoy
like those things.
more of the top level business things, like the problem solving, the top level thinking, but when it comes to actually executing like a sales funnel and the technological part of it, like we've done so many of them, and they've broken all over the place, and oof,
but there are people who like that stuff. They're like, ooh, cool techie problem. Like it's not us,
bring those
and that's
people
okay.
in. But I think it's really important to put little exclamation points around the fact that we need to tell people about it. Like so many times people launch something and they share about it like once on their Instagram and they're like, why is nobody buying? Yeah, you got to tell people about things that you do. And obviously Ilana and I are not starting from zero. As we've said, we have existing networks specifically for art, but you're not starting from zero either. No matter who you are, even if you're just stepping into the art world for the first time, you have an existing network of people in your life who are going to know somebody who needs your help, or they're themselves going to need your help. So I think it's really important to utilize your existing network. Even if you think you don't have one, you do. So start paying attention and tell people what you do so that they know that there's that option out there that they can hire you.
Right. And that if we're doing 5K projects, one a month, that first project we do might be a $1,500 project. And maybe it leads to a bigger one the next month. Or maybe we'll have a month where there's a 20K project. Who knows? And we might also have to stretch ourselves with what we are saying yes to, because maybe we'll get an inquiry for branding, which we're not a brand studio. However, maybe it's like something that really appeals to us. They really want a lot of handmade, hand lettered, illustrative type. They love what we do. And so we might take on a project that's really different than what we were expecting. And so we'll see. But yeah, we're going to have to do that outreach and like be talking about it all the freaking time so that people know that it's something we offer. And obviously our messaging on our website has to match that as well.
Yeah, you have to tell people exactly what you want them to do when they get to your website. Do you want them to hire you for a project? Do you want them to take your course? Do you want them to do a dance? So, I don't know. You just have to be clear about it, because again, people can't read our minds, which we've had to weirdly learn the hard way. Okay. And so let's talk then about how specifically, using our portfolio, do we get the projects that we're really excited to do. So Ilana and I have done some brainstorming on like what our dream projects are and where the areas are that we really want to focus. And then if you follow like Lauren Hom, for example, you'll have heard of the term passion project, which is something we believe in very strongly. Basically, it's making imaginary projects where you're your own client and you make something that you want in your portfolio that somebody hasn't necessarily hired you for yet. So that's going to be something that we're going to do throughout this year as well. Is, for example, I really want to do more book covers because I have a big passion for reading, aka listening to audiobooks, specifically around like sci-fi and fantasy. Those are my favorite genres. So I would really love to get into that. And I love the storytelling of it. And then I'm also really into music. So I want to have some overlap there. So I'll search for project ideas that can show off my skills in those areas and could potentially, catch people's attention, just something interesting that people might see or share or remember that also happens to show off, hey, I can make book cover designs. Hey, I can do album covers.
Love that. I was just checking how many books I've read this year already.
How
And
many?
I've already read, well, I listened to a few. Like I will do both at this, like not at the same time, but like I will alternate. 6.
Wow.
I'm gonna crush that goal. But yeah, I don't read the same books as you though, and
I
so
read
we're
books
gonna
that are like 800 pages, like a pop,
yeah.
and take
No,
like
mine are
30
like
hours to listen to.
150. No, but we listen to very
I've listened to
different.
two,
Yeah,
two so
that's
far.
still a lot. That's probably the equivalent of my
That
6.
took a whole road trip to North
Yeah,
Carolina and back to do.
but we have different interests there, and I
Yeah.
did notice that there's like a theme of cover design with the type of books that I listen to that I like kind of want to shift.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, maybe I could design a cover for the books I'm reading, and not to say I don't like how this one is done, but like how would I have done it if I was the designer? Like that's, no hate to them. I still bought the book and we all buy books for their covers. Yeah, we'll see. We're going to have some passion projects sprinkled in, and that should help us to kind of even build basically like fake case studies, which, as long as you're clear that this was not for an actual client, I think that's a really great way to share that with potential clients and help you book jobs. So we've got some of that to do. And of course, that comes with outreach as well, with, finding the right connections, sending them our work, and just fostering those relationships. So we've definitely got our work cut out for us there, especially since we've been out of the freelance game for quite some time. And it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And I'm really excited to do it with you, baby
Oh
girl.
my God, baby girl. Okay, so let's just wrap up by talking about some backup plans. So we had some notes for the show, just like making sure we hit some of these things. And it's funny because Katie wrote down backup plans question mark. And I'm curious, like, what was your thought when you wrote that down?
Well, I'm usually a person that's like, I need 12 backup plans.
Mm,
But we've taught, how to make a business plan before, and you've had some hesitation on how much we lean into backup plans, just as far as like mindset goes and overwhelm potentially for teaching people. So that's why I put a question mark, because I was like,
yeah.
and also they're not, I think my backup plans used to be very clearly developed and I knew in much more detail, but now I feel much more comfortable kind of flying by the seat of my pants. Like it's not that I don't have ideas floating in my head of like
Right.
this kind of thing could make us money quickly if we really need it, but I don't have a fully fleshed out, like, at this date, we will trigger this launch. And like, if we haven't made X amount of money by X date, then we
Right.
will flip all the emergency switches and do this
Right.
thing.
I guess something we talked about yesterday as well was that we don't have validation on another idea. Like this idea is coming from, we used to be freelance designers. That's how we started our own business. So we know that we can be freelance designers again. We know that people have purchased our work. We know that we have a skill set to offer. And so we have validation that we can freelance and that we can continue
Yeah.
licensing our work, even though we like took a little bit of a hiatus. We were still in the licensing world, just not like churning out work. And so we don't have like another thing that we're at this very moment passionate about falling back on, or like trying if this spaghetti doesn't stick on the wall. However, we also don't necessarily need one, because we're doing this because we want to. We're not doing this to make our salary. We're not doing this because we need money. Like we're doing this, yes, it's going to be part of our salary and part of our income, but we're not doing it to get rich. We're doing this because we are not fulfilled enough in our creative process right now.
I
And
mean,
so
I'm
we
doing it
have to
to
do
make
this.
money as well. But yeah,
No,
not
I
to
know.
get
No, we
rich.
are.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like we still have some income coming in from other places. And so if we don't hit this 100K, we're not going to like have to go find a full-time job. We will just have to reroute and figure out another way to try and do more outreach, or to like, we're going to find a different way to make this work. If our current plan doesn't work, we're not going to like
Yeah.
throw in the towel and go try a different revenue stream.
Yeah, the backup stuff gets easier the longer that you've spent in the business world, because if I've learned anything, it's that nothing is certain.
Yeah.
And that idea is terrifying and was so scary to me at first that I started having panic attacks. But therapy and medication and time and experience, I've seen that, when something doesn't go as planned, everything doesn't necessarily just blow up.
Right.
They're like, I figure something out. every
Right.
time, or especially now that I have you, one of us is going to come up with something to do. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a big safety net that I feel like I have now, is just my own
Right.
strategic brain and experience, and then you are huge to have
Well, thank you.
to
I
have
feel
like
like
in my
be-
corner.
because the way that we work, like Katie has a lot of spreadsheets for us about our finances. And so what's going to happen is at the end of like the first month where we're trying this, we're going to look and say, did we generate any money? You know, the backup plan is not like, okay, if in 3 months we haven't made any money, we quit. The backup plan is if in 3 months we haven't made enough money, what can we change about how we're doing outreach or what we're sharing or where we're reaching out to try and make that number bigger. So I guess it's like a reframing. It's a mindset shift of like, it's not a backup plan. It's just like changing your approach, because we can't not make art and get paid for it. Like we have to make art and get paid for it. So we're doing it to make money. Yes, of course. But we're not doing it to get rich quick. Like this is the long-term plan.
We would be doing
of
something else if we wanted to.
We would be selling our feet pics if we wanted to get rich quick.
100%.
Yeah. So it's just this mindset of like, if this isn't showing us the results that we need to feel comfortable about the salary we're taking home, how do we shift? And so,
and again, not just financially, but emotionally
yes,
as well.
Of course.
That's something to measure too.
So now that we've kind of given the whole picture, two things that I want to mention before we like wrap up are, we literally never remember to ask anyone to leave a review. Please leave a review. We would please please leave a review. That would mean so much to us. But also, please email us or let us know if this experiment is something that you want to be like in the weeds with us in. Like, how much info do you want us to share? What are you going to be most curious about? You know, at the end of the month, do you want a recap of some sort? You know, we'll be sharing it across our channels, but I would love to hear what you're most excited about. And if you're on a similar journey, give us all the details. Just email us hello@goodtype.us, because we would truly love to hear. And I will be in that inbox looking for your answers. So please. Okay.
Please leave us a review.
So beautiful. I love it so much. Okay. Anything else we need to say before we wrap up?
I think that's good. We explained ourselves, and we're really excited to start this off with y'all and for you to be along for this journey. And we're going to share it, whether it's good or bad. We're going to just be honest about what happened.
It's going to be great.
Cross your fingers. Everything is perfect and goes exactly as planned, but as I said
that's not
earlier,
going to happen.
We know that's not.
But it is going to be good. It's going to be good because we're going to have fun doing it, and it's going to be a good experiment.
Fun.
Okay, that's it for now. We'll fill you in the next time, and that's it. All good things.
Peace, love, and letters.
Ooh.
No, that's not our new sign off. Forget it. All right, bye.
Okay, bye.